Hey everyone, welcome to creating Instagram quotes using HTML and CSS. My name is Joe Keohan and I'm going to be walking you through creating a very stunning and awe-inspiring Instagram quote using solely HTML and CSS. And to start, I wanted to show some of the Instagram quotes that Kia and myself have created. We have a Instagram called The Newbie and the Pro, myself being the pro, Kia being the newbie, and together we've been creating some Instagram quotes, some my own design, some Kia's design, and we use it as a tool to inspire ourselves as well as teach how to create these Instagram quotes using HTML and CSS. So the link to Newbie and the Pro will be available in the description. But for now, these are some of the Instagram quotes, some really, really beautiful, stunning ones, right? Some really nice ones. We even have more than this. We just have to upload a few more. But the one we're going to be working with is this one, which happens to be one of my most favorites. The bouquet of flowers and the colors, the chalk background, the fonts. The quote itself is also one of my favorites. Smile more than you can cry, give more than you can take, and love more than you hate. So we're going to be creating this particular quote. And before we get started, we have a blank code pen. This is our kind of template that we're going to be starting with. And in it, I have a link to that particular Instagram as well as some instructions on what we're going to be doing. And in this section, we're going to be adding the HTML. And in this section, we will add the CSS. Okay, so what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to kind of break this down into two panes so we can see the quote and the text and we can see what we need to be adding here. Okay, all right, so we're going to get started. So first piece of direction that we have here is create an article element. And then inside of that, we're going to create paragraph elements for each line in the design. And then we're going to wrap a span around each word that is in bold so we can target it later. And then we'll continue on to part two, which is assigning the actual CSS. So I'm going to go down here and create an article element. So if you are new to HTML, HTML uses elements as a way of organizing content on a page. And so elements are created in this fashion where you give the name of the element, article, and then you close that element. Okay, so this is an opening and a closing tag for the element. Okay, so this is an opening tag, and this would be a closing tag. Okay, tag with one G. Whoop. Okay. And it's used to organize our content. So I want this article to surround our quote itself. Now, our quote, so you know what? I'm going to put this underneath here. Let me put it right there. Okay? I don't want to clog up what's inside of here. And inside of it, we are going to create a paragraph element for each line of text in the design. So I can do a P and then a closing P tag. We can do it like this. Now, I can copy and paste this, and I could keep doing it for each line. Now, that's a tedious process. So an easier way to really kind of create elements inside of CodePens is to just type P and hit tab, and it will create it for us. Okay, so we can create that, and I can say smile, ... and then go to the next line, type in P, and then say more than you cry. Go to the next line, and you can see the text appearing on the screen. It was just there. Okay, P, and we want to say give ... and do another P tag, more than you take, P tag, love ... You'll see that I love the 3 dots. It's kind of my thing. And more than you hate. Okay, so this is what our content looks like right now. Okay, not a lot going on, no magic there. The one thing that we need to do is wrap a span around each word that is in bold so we can target it later. And the bold being referenced here, smile, give, and love are those 3 kind of key words that we can do. So I have smile here, so I can wrap this in a span like so. Okay, closing span. So that's one way to do it. Now I have 2 more. I can do it the same way. Now I can do this too. I can click here, hold my command key down. I'm on a Mac, by the way. Hold my command, click here, and then I have a, it's flashing in both of those locations, which means I can start typing span, and it'll add the content to both of those areas. And then I can do the same thing here. Click here, hold the command key down, click here, and then I can add a closing span. Okay, well, I don't know why this moved over. We'll just move it back. Okay, now you won't see anything really happen here because we haven't added any additional CSS to it. So this is just kind of the default CSS that's applied to these elements. So a P tag naturally has some spacing between the elements themselves. Okay. Now that we've added our content, I'm going to go down here and add some CSS. And the first thing I want to do is kind of visualize the container. Everything on the screen here is a container or a box. Being that they are a box, they have heights, widths, and borders that define the box dimensions. So I'm going to visualize the container's dimensions by kind of highlighting the border. So I'm going to say border, colon, 1 pixel, solid black, semicolon. And what we'll see is the article then shows its main container. Okay, so this is the dimensions of the article, and the article contains all of these elements, so we can clearly see where it begins and it ends and what it contains. Now I'm going to define the dimensions. I'm just going to move this over here, and what you can see is the element, this article, will expand in size as we increase the width. Okay, and so we want to kind of lock those dimensions in. So I'm going to say a width, maybe 500 pixels. We'll make it 500 pixels, and what you see that it did expand past here. Okay, so I'm forcing it to be a certain width, and it'll always be that width. And then I'm also going to say, give it a height of 400 pixels. And so it should increase in height as well. Okay, and these dimensions will come in more handy later on when we start adding background image, increasing the size of the fonts. Now that we have this element, what you'll see here is that the element is positioned left. It's kind of bordering this left line here, and all this space over here is kind of empty. And I would like to center the article. I'd like it to be in the middle of the page. And so we are going to do that using something called margin 0 auto. And so that centers the element. And margin is something that's added to an element to create distance between the element and other elements on the page. And so now there's margin to the left and margin to the right, kind of centering the element. Okay. The last thing that I want to do is position the container content. So all of this content here, I kind of want to also move the content so that it's not so nested against the left side of the article. For now, we won't move it later, but I just want you to get an idea of how we would do that. And I'm going to give it some padding. And I'm going to say padding 10 pixels. And what we'll see is the content not only moved right, but it moved down. And so what we've added is padding on the inside of this particular article, thereby pushing the content over a little bit to the right and a little bit down. Okay, now what we can see is that the paragraph elements have space between them. This is just a natural distribution of space between paragraphs, as normally when we write paragraphs, we do add space between paragraphs, and this is doing the same thing. So we're going to do that. Now I'm going to go to the paragraph element here, and we are going to give it some space here, and or take away space, and I'm going to take away its margin 0 semicolon, and there you have it. And I've taken away its space. So now the text is kind of aggregated together, and we removed the space. So in this particular video, I just wanted to introduce you just to the beginning concepts of HTML and CSS. And those concepts were a tag, an opening tag, and a closing tag. And that's concept you saw repeated: an opening article and a closing article, an opening paragraph and a closing paragraph, an opening span and a closing span. Okay, and these particular elements are used to target very specific content on a page. So it makes sense to use these elements for this content, at least in my perspective, although we could use other elements as well. And then for CSS, we just went ahead and added some CSS that targeted the article and the P elements. And we did so by giving it a border, a width and a height, a margin, and some padding for the article. And then for the paragraph tag, we removed the space between the P elements. Okay, and now they're sitting much closer to each other than they did before. And in the next video, we will go ahead and add some additional CSS to the actual text itself, and you'll start to see how additional CSS can be used to add and increase the styles to our Instagram quote.